Welcome to Luxury Icons, the marketing and PR podcast created by the Luxury Communications Council. I'm Rosie Shephard, the founder of the Luxury Communications Council, the world's only membership network dedicated to advancing the global luxury industry by uniting, supporting and championing marketing communication leaders. This podcast is dedicated to meeting some of the industry's most prolific leaders, delving into the challenges and opportunities that we face together. So getting started, I'm thrilled to welcome media royalty to our Meet the Editors session. We have Lydia Slater, Editor-in-Chief of Harper's Bazaar. Now, Lydia has led the team since 2020, having served as Deputy Editor prior. Previously, edited Town & Country and The Sunday Times and has written for The Times, Telegraph, Stella and oh so many more. She's also a firm favourite with so many of you. Kenya Hunt has been the editor-in-chief of Elle since 2022, has previously held key roles at Grazia UK and Elle as well. Her writing has appeared in The Washington Post, The Guardian, Harper's Bazaar and Vogue, and she's a published author with a book of essays, Girl. And finally, Ben Spriggs, editor-in-chief of Elle Deco. Ben has been the editor for the last 7 years, but actually with the team for the last 10. He's an expert in interiors with a talent for spotting design future stars. His impressive career spans the Sunday Times, The Guardian, Living, etc. And little known, I see you looking nervous that I'm about to say something weird. No, little known is that Ben actually worked on our side of the fence for a short while as PR on the Mayborn Hotel Group before racing back to his true calling. I'm afraid Alex Bilm had to step away, so we'll have to catch up with him another time. Now, we're going to start by having a little bit of a group chat, and then we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into each title. I'd like to start by thinking about your audiences. So many luxury brands have redefined their relationships with audiences over the last 5 years. Do you think that the role that you play in people's lives has shifted? And does that mean that you are potentially interacting with them differently? I'm going to come to you, Kenya.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a real treat to be here, and congratulations on the wonderful year that you've had. So I think on Elle, our relationship with our readers have definitely evolved with time. I started at Elle in 2015, so I've witnessed a lot of change during that period. I left for 2 years during the lockdown period, and then I joined it as a reader many years before that, and I can remember growing up as a reader, I feel like there was more of a relationship between the editors and the readership in which the editor was kind of speaking to the reader from on high, making these declarations about what the new hemline was or what the new talking points were, your shopping edit and that sort of thing. Whereas now I think our readership very much wants to be listened to. So I think they are opinionated and they have a much greater and heightened awareness than they ever have about our industry and how things are made and how things are produced. And so as a result, I feel like it has to be an exchange and a relationship rather than us. I mean, we definitely come from it from a place of expertise, which they absolutely value. But at the same time, we approach them with an open mind and we want to hear from them and learn from them as much as they do from us, because I think social media has completely changed that relationship and that landscape. So there is that expectation that they have to be listened to.
Ben, is that also your experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think with Elle Decoration, it's, I think we learned so much in the pandemic, and I think it changed the world of design and interiors so much because, we're relatively niche in terms of, that audience, but it changed because people suddenly were locked up at home and they were looking around and going, oh my God, my kitchen's awful. And well, the sofa I'm sat on is really uncomfortable, and so people who weren't even considering design before suddenly came around to that. And so to Kenya's point, we actually started listening much more to the audience, I think. And, I always say, we can't be in an echo chamber. We have to listen to them, understand what they want and respond to that.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add, Lydia?
Yes, well, I would say that I totally agree that it's much less of a sort of top-down, you will listen to my diktat. But what we're finding is that there's this huge eagerness to come into our world and to really sort of get behind the velvet rope and actually, meet the experts, meet the brands, go into the ateliers, find out, how this luxury world is created. And so from our point of view, we're really sort of focusing on those kind of bespoke events where we can bring the reader to the brands and sort of show them what we know, and they really appreciate that opportunity.
Great. And staying with you, Lydia, Condé Nast has adopted a global first approach to editorial, while Hearst has maintained your commitment to local content, presumably with a fair amount of stories shared internationally in reality. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and how you feel that sets your editorial agenda apart?
Yeah, I feel like we kind of this Hearst approach is actually giving us the best of all worlds, because obviously, you know, from the point of view of Harper's Bazaar, the British title has an incredibly British flavour, and we've always, you know, we focus on events like Glyndebourne and the season and things like that, and you know, our readership. Even we sell really well in America, but what they like is the Britishness of it. So I think that when we do kind of global collaborations, quite often they're led by us. But it's always, it's not a sort of we've done something and then you all have to take it. It's like, for instance, we just did a couture shoot which was picked up by 20 titles, 20 territories, but we spoke to them all, and we sort of understood what brands they wanted us to feature, and you know the sort of vibe of it. And so then it went everywhere because people wanted to pick it up. It's not a sort of imposed thing. But equally, I think that it's really vital that each title, there's 29 international Harper's Bazaars, and they all have a very strong flavour. And there's no way you'd pick up the Spanish Bazaar and think you were picking up the British one. And I think that's what the readership really appreciates, so that when we have these massive global moments, which we do, we might, for example, like last year, we did a global women in art portfolio, but we did the women, the artists that we wanted to feature, and then you know everyone did their own women, and then it was a sort of big video franchise that so it's sort of everybody contributing to it, and it's relevant to each territory, if you see what I mean. So I think so we have the power to do something enormous and make a big splash, but at the same time we're not losing that sort of local relevance, which, as you all know, post pandemic is more important than ever.
And Kenny or Ben, do you have anything to add?
I mean, we work in a similar way in Elle, you know, the similar strategy, which is very much, you know, prioritizing what makes our local editions so distinct, and really preserving that local flavor, and also the joy of like opening the magazines and really seeing the local cultural nuance, like knowing who all those players are in terms of British fashion, in terms of the world of literature and art. But that said, we do band together for big global moments. And I think the Elle Network has always, you know, as long as I can remember, has had that sort of spirit of collaboration. So we tend to do it for big global cover stars when it makes sense. So the year I joined, we did one with Adele, or, you know, Beyonce, when she launched Ivy Park years ago, we all banded together to make that really big and impactful. Or Rihanna when she launched Fenty. So it launches on the same day across all the editions, and it feels very impactful. But when it comes to, you know, the day to day and the month to month, the vast majority of what's going in our magazines, it's produced by our team here. And so I think that is, you know, very special, and I do think it's what makes all of us stand apart. But that said, like Harper's Bazaar, we're the most syndicated from Elle and the network, and that's been a very long-standing thing, which is nice. So as a result, we have if we do a big designer profile with a creative director of a major house, or a main fashion story, the majority of the network, if they pick it up from us, which is helpful as well.
Oh, great. Well, I'd love to now take the opportunity to do a bit of a deep dive with each of you. We're going to start with you, Lydia. Firstly, congratulations on the Women of the Year Awards. I mean, it was everywhere, all over, probably everyone, certainly my social media, Victoria Beckham. And the December issue is just full of these visionary women, from iconic Julie Cooper, personal favourite of mine, to Dr. Nicola Fox, head of science at NASA. This mix of the sort of highbrow and the accessible feels very Harper's Bazaar, but is that balance, I guess, a sort of conscious decision, or does that just happen quite naturally?
I mean, I think we feel that the Harper's Bazaar woman is you know, she is someone who's very interested in fashion and culture, but she's also someone who probably read Rivals, you know, and so we want to reflect all those interests. And I think it's less about the actual content and more about the way that it's approached. So we would always sort of try and find a sort of unique approach to it, or sort of, you know, the backstory. We're always looking to highlight women in particular. Our strapline is the power of women, and so, you know, if there's a sort of a woman director or a woman producer behind, you know, we'll often talk to her. So I think it's just a recognition that, you know, our reader is interested in a lot of things.
Yeah,
As are we, actually. I mean, you know, it's also a reflection of what we're interested in.
yeah, absolutely. Championing women was obviously at the core of what you do, as you say. So I remember the last time we did this Meet the Editors panel, which was actually during lockdown, so we were all online. This is much more fun. But you were developing the Bazaar at Work Summit. That's now obviously a firm fixture in the calendar, and now we have also the International Women's Day Gala Dinner, another standout event, hosting speakers from all over the world of activism and entertainment. But that's for readers, isn't it?
So basically, the summit it's happening next week. So if any of you want to come, please do. And it, you know, to your point, actually, we're trying to get that sort of slightly unexpected mix of the intellectual and the impactful, like, you know, Dr. Nicola Fox, who you mentioned, who's the head of science at NASA, who's coming to speak. But also we have Elizabeth Hurley, who's coming to talk about her career. And also we have Felicity Blunt, who's the literary agent, who actually was also behind bringing Rivals to the screen. And she's also the sister of Emily Blunt. So, you know, and then panels of distinguished businesswomen talking about various issues, like sort of optimizing the workforce. The conference is titled Reach for the Stars, so you can interpret that however you want. You know, rather like today, it's about bringing together a group of people who want to meet each other, who are like-minded, and who also want to maybe come away with some insights. And I have to say that Summit, I always come away with something that changes my life, and it could be in a tiny little way, but you know, every year there's something that I think, yes, I'm going to do it differently from now on. And then International Women's Day is our other sort of, that's obviously in March. And, you know, it's got a more of a sort of specific female empowerment angle, I guess. But, you know, so we could have anyone from, I don't know, Dame Helena Morrissey to Sam McAllister, who's the producer that brought that sort of did the Prince Andrew interview, or, you know, Gina Miller or Marissa Abella, who played oh God,
Amy
Winehouse.
Yeah,
Amy Winehouse. So talking about the experience of doing that. So it's sort of that, you know, and it's a beautiful dinner, and but at least half of what draws people there is being able to meet each other and sort of, and also talk to the speakers as well. So it's what I was trying to say before about sort of taking you behind the velvet rope, and actually sort of, you know, meeting these people that you might have read about, but actually realizing that they've got a lot in common with you, which is what's interesting, I think.
Definitely, and that sort of exclusive access becoming much more inclusive is a super interesting new, I think, something that's common to all of the initiatives you're doing. And we'll talk more about yours in a minute. But you mentioned art before. Obviously, we've had the return of Harper's Art and magazine and party in collaboration with Tiffany. Should we expect to see more art this year, and then indeed, or next year, I should say, and then indeed, what else can we expect to see more of?
Well, I mean, art has always been a pillar for Harper's Bazaar, and we've been doing our Bazaar art supplement since 2012, and our focus has always been on women in art. And so as a result, I think we have become acknowledged experts in that particular field, and it's really great. So now we are beginning to actually sort of consult externally. So this collaboration with Tiffany was a really great example of that, because you know, obviously Tiffany is a fantastic brand that we're thrilled to partner with, and they had this activation at Selfridges where all the windows were being curated by artists, or were sort of previous windows that Tiffany had had sort of historically. And we brought Rana Begum, the artist, to them, who then created this beautiful window for them. And that piece of art was also then the cover of Bazaar Art this year. And then we had a lovely party at Mark's Club. But so because of art being so key for us, we also did the art walk during London Gallery Weekend, which we partnered with a luxury fragrance brand. And that was a very different event, because obviously Bazaar Art is quite a sort of huge thing. But the art walk, we only had 30 people, but it was very sort of, it was quite fun. We basically took 30 sort of artists, celebrities around 3 London galleries, and we ended up in Thaddeus Ropak's private apartment with a cocktail party, and the fragrance brand was integrated throughout, because the idea from them was that their fragrances are works of art in themselves. So we integrated it in different ways. We used the ingredients and the fragrance in the cocktails. They had their candles in one of the galleries, and so on and so forth. So it's fun to do that combination of events. That's either they can be very big or they can be really small, and everything's sort of bespoke. And then, so art is going to be a big thing for us next year, and I think we will probably look to do art events throughout the year.
Lovely. And I think that feels like a really nice example of a really creative commercial collaboration with a brand as well.
Yeah.
So presumably you're sort of open to ideas in that field as well.
I mean, I think that's what we really like doing, because we are content curators, and we really enjoy the challenge of trying to put something on that actually feels really authentic for all sides. So it's not a badging exercise. It's how can we integrate your brand and your idea into our brand. So Cunard, for example, is quite a good example of that, because we have partnered with Cunard to do a wellness at sea sort of spa package. So if you go on a cruise, you can buy a Harper's Bazaar sort of spa package, which involves you get products, but you also have treatments. You might have exercise routines, and it's sort of either relaxation or rejuvenation. And so that we did this year, and that's now expanding next year, and it's going to go. We're going to encompass an international cruising, and then the idea, hopefully, is that we will end up with a Harper's Bazaar cruise where we will be on board and sort of curating events and lectures and things like that. So so it's an idea that starts small and hopefully expands exponentially.
Exciting. And what else is happening next year? So I know you mentioned there might be an additional travel supplement. Tell us about any sort of additional networks or any other focuses you've got going
so
on.
our big focus for next year really is Bazaar Privé, which is our sort of decision to really sort of go into trying to connect with our reader on this, on a very sort of intimate level. So what I was talking about taking the reader to the brands. So we are hoping to launch a members club, which will be very sort of high end, and it will be. We will be doing events every month, taking readers to, organising dinners, maybe inviting them to meet our cover stars, taking them to ateliers to see what's going on. So that's really what we're hoping to do for next year, and also obviously looking to partner with luxury brands, so that we can sort of bring these very high net worth readers to you, because I think it's one of those things that they will really appreciate, but I think it's sort of mutually beneficial, really.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like something we should all explore. Thank you so much, Lydia.
Thank you.
Moving on to you, Kenya. Now, you kindly spoke with us at an LCC fireside. It was nearly 3 years ago when you first started in the role. The thing that really stood out to me in that interview was your objective to make Elle a truly, really, I guess, progressive and inclusive platform. Is that something you feel you've achieved?
I have, it's quite surreal to think back on how much has happened and unfolded in the past nearly 3 years in terms of the world of Elle, but also the industry at large. And at Elle, I have to say that it's been a real privilege to work with such an incredible team, and I do feel very proud of the team. They really do represent a really broad spectrum of points of view and backgrounds, and they come from a wide range of experiences in terms of their, where they come from, the various regions. It's not completely London centric. It's quite racially inclusive, age, inclusive, and even down to, different experiences in terms of, body shapes and size and that sort of thing. And so I think it really comes across in the pages, from the cover through to the back page, which is, a real joy and a thrill.
Great. And we saw this reflected in the Next Gen initiative as well.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and any other projects that champion inclusivity?
Well, so I think the thing that I've always loved about Elle, long before I joined it as an editor, was that sense of discovery. I think Elle has always been a very future-facing brand, and it's been it gives you those thought leaders and those icons and those women who sit in the center of their various, sit at the center of the conversations of their various areas, whether it be, art, film, fashion, beauty, sustainability, and that sort of thing. But I love discovering newness in Elle. And so I can remember opening the pages and discovering Jonathan Anderson for the first time. Simone Rocha, her very first prize that she ever won was a bursary from Elle. I can remember discovering, various actors. And so I think we're very good at both. And so nurturing and developing new talent has always been a key part of that. And so I wanted to sort of bring that sense of using the power of our platform to support new talent, especially now, because I think it's been quite a challenging year for British fashion in particular. And so we wanted to support, to do what we can to create, and enhance the pathways into the industry. So we launched the Elle Style Awards last year, and so it was really about helping to create opportunities for all of the various parts of the industry that make up our world. So the image makers, the aspiring writers, journalists, stylists. So we have a cohort of 8 mentees who are across those various areas. And then this year we launched a bursary prize, and we're preparing to open up applications for that. So it's for designers, for brands whose businesses are 5 years or younger. And so we'll give them a monetary, a cash prize, but also business mentorship. So that, is something that I'm very excited to do as well. And so I think that sense of supporting British fashion, but also being a part of their history. We turn 40 next year. And so I think it's really interesting that we're having a 40th anniversary following the 40th anniversary of London Fashion Week, which is, drawing to its, this has been their big anniversary year. But Elle has been, a huge part of that sort of rise of British fashion, London fashion, and has had an indelible impact on that. And so I think that's been, a key part of our history, a core part of who we are as a brand. And in the years to come, the next 40 years, there will very much be that sense of really giving back to the industry that we're a part of.
And that fits in really nicely with the work with your Style Awards. Always incredible icons there. Florence Pugh, Thames involved this year. And I guess it's sort of bridging the gap between the new talent and then they are awarded at the Style Awards later on. Is that sort of how you see it?
Definitely. I mean, it's absolutely celebrating the best of British fashion and culture. The Style Awards launched in the early aughts. Here in London and Elle, and it exists now, across a range of other sort of sister L's across our network. And so for us, I mean, I can remember when I moved to London and seeing the coverage in the newspapers, and I think it's always been a real pillar event for us as a brand, but also an important sort of platform, and again, a way of sort of celebrating the best of the talent that we have. So next year will be quite a big, anniversary party for us. And again, it's really bringing together those two worlds. So those icons alongside those newer emerging breakout stars. And of course, the best of fashion. So, last year it was great to celebrate Sarah Burton and Kim Jones and Martine Rose, who all have three distinctly different legacies and points of views and bodies of work. And so that's very much, we'll very much be sort of continuing that that celebration of British fashion and doing it in a way that feels quite representative of how British fashion looks.
That sounds great. And with readers wanting to get even more close to you than ever before, can you tell us about Elle Collective?
Yeah, so Elle Collective we launched last year, a month after, bringing back the Style Awards. So it was a very full year for us. And it's been a real joy and a wonder for us because I think as editors, I can remember coming up as a young junior and we would talk through, we'd do away days and talk through who our reader is and create this picture of who she is. Or I can remember interviewing designers backstage at shows and they're like, my muse, my woman is a gallerist, or you always have this picture of who your person is, and then we would use data like Google Analytics and study their behaviors digitally. But there's nothing like being in a room with them and seeing who they are, like getting a sense of them, getting to know them. So we launched the membership a year ago, and I think that's been the most exciting thing to see is that our readers really are who we hoped they would be and who we've been telling everyone they are. So that, they have quite thriving careers and, but they really pay attention to the industry. They really care about it. They love fashion. They love beauty. We launch it off the back of our beauty advent calendar. So there's a real appetite for beauty in particular, but also luxury fashion. So the premise of the program is that we give them the experience of being an Elle editor. Like they can come into our world and experience the joys that we do from day to day. So we get to meet these incredible people who appear on our covers. We, have time with wonderful authors, or we go to see exhibitions first. We try the beauty products first. We see the collections first. And so essentially everything that we put into the magazine, we build an extension of that for our members. So we did a digital cover with Phoebe Dynevor, for example, when she was launching Fair Play with Netflix. So we did a screening with Vuitton and Netflix with Phoebe talking through the film to our members before showing them the screening. Their members have come to join me for a talk that I did with Gucci around their Changemakers program. Just recently, we did a talk just before the US elections on the meaning of soft power with Max Mara. We just had an event with Tiffany last week, which was quite wonderful. We had Danielle Deadweiler, who is currently promoting the film The Piano Lesson, and she's tipped for an Oscar, we'll see. But that said, she came and hosted a screening for us. So it's been a really nice sort of curation of events and moments for our readers in which they really can sort of step into our world. But it's been nice to see the regulars. We have mother-daughter duos who come again and again. And so it's been a real joy. So that's going to be a key focus for us. In terms of the size of the membership, we've grown it to a little over 3,700, which is where we are now currently. And we've done that in the past year. And again, our brand partners really run the gamut. So it's, we've partnered with Chanel twice now, Tiffany, the Royal Academy, and then, some of our homegrown, like independent designers who we love, like Regina Pio. So it really is a real sort of spectrum, but all sort of brand partners who really sort of have key, meaningful relationships with us and who really are a big part of our world.
Great, and presumably there's opportunities for new ones to come and,
Yes.
and be part of that. And speaking of sort of that sort of relationship, we saw the podcast you did with Nike, which was
Yes.
fantastic. So it was Why We Move. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it was essentially, lots of really interesting guests, and actually the first podcast you guys have done, I believe, certainly in the UK. So presumably there's I guess scope to do more in that space as well with brands and many other opportunities. There was a great one you did actually, obviously with Naomi Campbell and Boss recently.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, so I think that is so we have started working in new ways as our world has grown. When I first took on this position 3 years ago, we were a magazine, our website, and our social media channels. And now we've grown, our world feels much more immersive now. So we have, the magazine and our enormous audience across our website and our social channels, but also we have a podcast, we have our membership, we have a new app and a newsletter. So it feels much more immersive in which you can join our world and remain with us for longer. And so we're also doing the same thing with our issues. And so that, like, when an issue lands on the newsstand, it's on a newsstand for the newsstand cycle. But we want to give our readers an opportunity to engage with it longer and make it feel more meaningful. And so Naomi Campbell was the first time we did that. And that was a few slides back, where we had the cover with her. She appeared on the cover in advance of her exhibition with the V&A. And so when the cover launched, we did a talent-led dinner with her. And then we also did a talk for our members and for the public. So it was a talk Naomi and I did for the public. And then we did a dinner later that night, which was more talent-led. And we had Ray perform, which was really wonderful because it was right before her historic night at the Brits. But then from there, we had a few, a lineup of other moments in which our readers could connect with Naomi and or her collection for Boss, including a tour of the exhibition at the V&A. We had the cover up in the exhibition. And so it's that sense of an issue living a life beyond the newsstand cycle. And so for our 40th anniversary year, that is how we'll be working for the issues to come. And so here, this just sort of, it's a very text-heavy slide. Sorry about that. But that said, it gives you a sense of the themes, our editorial themes for the anniversary year coming up. And so it's essentially all of the core qualities that make Elle. So, it's 40 years of fashion, power, hope, love, renegades, friends, creativity, culture, beauty, and dreams. But each one of those issues will feel immersive. So there will be a cover star. There'll be like either a dinner, a dinner that's more sort of talent-led with friends of Elle, or a more members-led moment, or both. But they will each feel quite momentous in that it won't just be a magazine on a newsstand with articles on the website, but it'll feel much more cohesive and coherent and immersive, so that people feel compelled to stay with us longer and spend some time with us and our cover stars.
Well, perfect. I was about to ask you what next, so here is what's next.
Yeah.
I'm going to circulate that afterwards so that everyone has a copy and can use it for their reference. And perhaps I can also get a list of supplements and specials from Harper's and Elle Decoration as well. Turning to you, Ben. Thank you, Kenya.
Thank you.
Firstly, happy 35th anniversary to Elle Decoration. It's been a very busy year.
Yes, it has indeed. So it's been our 35th anniversary. We launched originally in 1989. Ilse Crawford was the launch editor back then. And yeah, we've had a really busy year, and we spent that year celebrating. We started with a big event in April during Salone in Milan, which is our big kind of event when most of the design calendar kind of kicks off. And yes, our September issue coincided with that anniversary, and we really kind of lent into that really, and thought we'd recreate the original cover with new kind of contemporary pieces. And surprisingly, it looks very similar, which I think kind of speaks to how kind of forward thinking and ahead we are. We've done obviously kind of video content around that. We did a big celebration of 35 years of British design. And then we also kind of looked forward as well. Looking forward's always been part of our DNA. And so we championed the kind of 10 pieces which are going to be future icons, looking at the kind of the cutting edge of new design and new creatives who are out there working. Some great names like James Stickley, Charlotte Kingsnorth, who are kind of names we're tipping for the top for the next 35 years. We also look forward, you can't see it here, but there was we got an artist called Charlotte Taylor to do an AI cover of what we think the cover image may look like in the next 35 years. So again, it's kind of, we're very future focused. That's kind of very much part of what we do. So that's been a big part of our year. And yes, that's kind of what the university's been kind of
I mean, it was a whole array of activities. So congratulations. You've obviously been at the magazine for 10 years,
yes.
Which is a brilliant time to sort of be able to note the evolution of how you work and what your focuses are. You say you're forward looking. What's next?
I think we're always constantly kind of feeling the kind of zeitgeist and what's going kind of coming up, and it's kind of looking at, directions, trends in interiors don't kind of move quite so quickly, but it's much more about those movements and those kind of feelings and all kind of social kind of ideas, really. As with the other titles, we're very much looking at kind of, our immersive content. We're not just, a magazine that comes out 10 times a year. We are much more about moments, and we're kind of, you'll see on some slides that come up now that we're looking at kind of different points throughout the month that kind of, so that people can kind of interact with us as a title. We've always been very proud of our position in the market. So we have a kind of, it always used to be kind of 60% consumer, 40% industry, and now it's much more 50-50. So we have our industry kind of audience, which is obviously architects, interior designers, creatives. And so we're always looking at how we can talk to those two audiences cohesively. And so we've very much done events. We're a bit kind of further back in our kind of membership kind of proposition, but we're working towards that, and it gives us the opportunity to really kind of test the water. So what we've done this year, we launched two initiatives. The one closest to me is called Design Discussions, which is a way of interacting with our audience in the industry sphere, so tastemakers, thought leaders in our industry, and putting on events. And like with Harper's Bazaar and Elle, these events are not cookie cutter. They're very different. They're really focused on the brands we're working with, the clients we're working with. So they could be a breakfast, they could be a kind of a cocktail, they could be, a more kind of formal kind of networking opportunity. But there were two here that we did with two different fabric brands. Closest to me was with Harlequin, because they launched a range with Henry Holland. Also very proud of our fashion credentials, obviously linked to our sister brand Elle. And so we're always leaning into that, our fashion heritage as well. And so that kind of gives us a great opportunity. I think also gives us real credibility in that space. A lot of our competitors don't have that fashion connection. So as that fusion between the fashion world and the luxury style world, and interiors, expands, I think we're best placed to kind of talk about that. Second one was with Larson, who are part of Colfax and Fowler. They have another brand there. So we met with the creative director, and we did a big dinner out in East London. This dinner was at Topless. So it's kind of, it's really looking at how we can emerge and get people together to kind of talk about what we're doing. The far right-hand side is the second initiative we've launched, which is called Design Insiders, and this is much more focused on our consumer base. So we did a week of events with Designers Guild on the King's Road, and it's about our audience coming in and learning how to do mood boards, how to kind of put colours together. It's all about, again, to what Lydia was saying, they want to come inside the magazine and see how we compile things, how we do things, how we put things together.
Gosh, well, sign me up for that. That's exactly what I need. Anyone who's been to my house in this room knows that. You mentioned you've got your two audiences, your sort of design industry versus the consumer. How do you balance talking to those both simultaneously within, and sort of, I guess, how do you balance the tone?
I think tone is crucially important. It always has been, and I think it's really interesting when you look at where we sit amongst our competitive set, that it's very much, we are, resolutely kind of modern and contemporary, but it's also, that's paired with, as Kenya said, expertise and in-depth knowledge and advice. And we don't dumb down, we don't talk down to the reader, but we also, there is, and also it's not alienating either. So it's kind of, we're really careful. We kind of question all the time, how is that going to be received? How is it going to be perceived by the audience? And so it sits in that lovely place between those two. So I think it adds, it feels educated, it's still accessible and still sophisticated. So that's kind of an interesting kind of balance to move between those 2 points.
And of course, crucial to that is your contributors. You've got an incredible line of contributors and experts.
Yes.
Who are you particularly proud of having brought to the table recently?
I mean, we have it's a much smaller team than some of our other kind of stable mates, but it's a very kind of hardworking kind of team of people. So we are always looking at how we can work with external contributors, and so we have a great extended family of writers, stylists. So we have Amy Heffernan, who's our contributing style director, and so she does a lot of our kind of decorating content up the front of the book. And then we're always looking at bringing new people together and new people into the magazine. This kind of talks back to what I was saying about these kind of pop-up moments that kind of happen away from the print product that lands. So it's working with different brands and our kind of commercial partners, and also looking at kind of, video covers or kind of moving covers, which we've done. So this is with Holloway Lee on the far right, who just done the office space for Mother, the advertising agency. And so we've definitely expanded away from purely homes. We've definitely moved into much more, I guess, acknowledging that people get inspiration from, it'll be hotels, it'll be bars, it's workspaces even. It's not, it's not just the homes of other people that inspire them. Then we did a great thing also in our anniversary issue. We worked with Dina Asher-Smith. It coincided with the Olympics, so it was perfect timing. It did brilliantly for us. She invited us into her home. She'd worked on with Farrow and Ball, so that kind of was a fantastic hit for us. And again, our commercial collaborations, we've worked with Samsung. This is our very first digital cover, which we did with Sophie Ashby, the interior designer, who's a real star. Rachel Chudley, another great interior designer. We did a shoot at one of her projects, and we did this kind of moving cover with her. And then most recently, we've done a big push with a big piece of work with Audi, talking about future design and linking the world of Elle Decoration with the world of their kind of sustainable eco electric vehicles.
So this is a combination of incredibly amazing editorial content with experts, but then also there's this commercial layer as well. So I guess what's interesting is that you all seem to be, in these new ways that you're working with your readers and indeed beyond, you're all open to sort of working with brands in different ways to sort of bring that all together, which is fantastic.
I think collaboration, for everyone's who's here in their fields, collaboration is increasingly important, and how we do that and do it kind of cohesively without feeling like it's actually just kind of like tacked on. It has to feel authentic and, has real integrity as well, and feel right for both our audiences, I suppose.
No, absolutely. Any future plans we should know about?
So we are obviously pushing forward. These two franchises I was mentioning before will be kind of developing this year, and again with a move to what membership for Elle Decoration might look like in the future. We're also looking at our Style Awards. So across our 35 years, I think the British Style Awards have been going for about 20, so we're looking to do those probably in November this year, and they'll be kind of rebooted and revamped for this year. So they've always been quite product focused in the past, whereas we're looking this time, it'll be much more focused on, I guess, interior design. And so we'll, interestingly to this room, we'll be looking at much more kind of like, okay, what's the best spa design? What's the best hotel design? So really looking at merging those worlds of product and interior design, spatial design as well.
Oh, we'll look forward to seeing all of that. Thank you so much. Now, just before I release you, I have to ask you my quick fire question, which is, what is your ultimate luxury? You're going to start with you, Lydia.
Oh no, don't start with me.
Okay, sorry. We'll start with you, Ben.
Okay, so mine, I am a real fan of a very cold, very crisp dry martini. So it's a martini in a beautiful bar here, perhaps, or somewhere.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's a martini, but it's got to be gin and with an olive.
Brilliant. And just for anyone listening on the podcast, we're at Scarves Bar at the Rosewood Hotel. Kenya, coming to you.
I think mine is a bit of an earnest answer, but I think my ultimate luxury is time. Usually time with my kids.
Nice.
Oh, well, mine was also time. But okay, on a more frivolous level, I think I really love a beautiful pair of silk pajamas.
Oh, nice. Love it. Okay, well, all very life's little luxuries, achievable things in theory. If anyone wants to know, mine's time away from my kids. The shame. But that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much to all of you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us for Luxury Icons. This has been brought to you by the Luxury Communications Council in conjunction with Trapdoor Productions. If you'd like more information on the Luxury Communications Council, please visit our website, luxurycommunicationscouncil.com.